Okay, I'm Stuart.
Hi, I'm Lisa.
We are Bonnerig RV Life. Normally we're going to be doing a video telling of the adventures and the good stuff and the disasters of our trip over the last little while, but not tonight. Tonight we're going to talk about alcohol and our journey with alcohol separately and then together. So I'm going to go first, right? Are you going to say anything?
Yeah.
And by the way, this is completely winging it. No script whatsoever.
So when we started our channel, Stuart and I thought, well, let's talk about topics, because we have topics that we can talk about. So about a week ago or a couple days ago, I just said, why don't we do the alcohol topic? Because it was a huge thing in my life and Stuart's life, and I think we've learned some things. We've had a love-hate relationship with it. So we thought it was interesting. It just dawned on me, a lot of people are doing, what is it, the sober...
Dry January.
Dry January. So a lot of people are doing dry January, so it kind of, makes sense that maybe we
started our
about
dry January on December 26th, but we'll talk about that later. So let me start. So I'll start. My alcohol journey started probably when I was about 8 or 9 years old in Scotland, or 10. At New Year's Eve, New Year's parties, the family would get together, and I was allowed to have a sherry or a shandy, which is a beer and lemonade soda mix. You wouldn't call it lemonade here, you'd call it, what do you call it? Soda, cream soda. I've lost that one already. Anyway, so I started drinking alcohol probably 8 or 9 years old. My dad was a heavy drinker, my mother didn't drink at all. And by the time I was 16, me and my buddies, we used to buy beer at the pub. We'd get the oldest looking guy. You could buy beer at 18 in Scotland, so the oldest looking guy would go into the pub and get cans of lager that we would take to a friend's house, and we'd have parties with alcohol. So I was already drinking pretty well by the time I was 16 years old. In fact, when I was 17 years old, I was the reigning Scottish youth 100 metre hurdles champion. And when I turned 17, I went to the junior 110 metre hurdles, and I actually ran that race hungover. I was actually hungover at the final of the Scottish 110 metre hurdles championships in 1978, and I managed to come in third, which is amazing considering that I was the last guy out of the blocks. Anyway, my relationship with alcohol, mostly beer, then wine, has been more love than hate, actually, other than the hangovers. But I always enjoyed beer. It was always a social thing. It was always a barbecue thing, grilling at the weekend, grilling steaks, having beer. So alcohol's been part of my life since early days. And the latter part of my life, meaning just before I had my cardiac arrest. I'm 64 years old now, turning 65 in March. I had a cardiac arrest when I was 58 years old, and I stopped drinking then for 6 months, which was probably the longest I had stopped drinking alcohol since I started drinking when I was a young lad, right? So that was the longest I'd stopped drinking alcohol. But before that, leading up to that, I was drinking probably a bottle or two of wine a day, every day, and maybe topping that off with 3 or 4 beers, and maybe the odd scotch.
You like whiskey too.
I like bourbon and I like scotch. I don't drink a lot of that. I don't get drunk on those things, but I do enjoy the odd scotch. But anyway, that's kind of where I'm coming from, and so I think I'll hand it over to you. Lisa's got a much more interesting story than mine. My journey's longer. Yours is shorter, but more interesting.
Yeah, but let's just talk about, when we started dating, I wanted to go sober. I've been sober on and off, and I'll get into that. So we went 10 months sober. Stuart, lost a lot of weight. I got really thin, and we were just, working out and healthy. And Stuart's like, we're going to Scotland. We're going to drink, Lisa. And I'm like, okay, and we did. We went to Scotland.
And why did you stop drinking for 10 months?
Just from stressors in our lives, and I was, we just.
You needed to escape from alcohol.
Oh, why did I stop? Yeah,
why did you stop for 10 months?
I just felt like we needed to get like your health, you know, because when I met Stuart, he was overweight.
Still am.
He still am, but hugely overweight.
Still
and no, you're not. And they say when you have a cardiac arrest or heart attack, you're usually dead within 5 years if you don't change your lifestyle. He was on tons of medication. And he was, you know, his ankles were swollen. I just thought, he's not going to outlive this year. He's, you know, he's drinking heavily every day. And so when I came into his life, you know, and are talking about getting married, when we started dating, I'm like, Stuart, I think it's time for you to get healthy. And the thing with alcohol that...
By the way, we're not doctors.
Yeah.
We're not giving medical advice. We want to just put that in there. We're just giving our opinion on alcohol and its relationship with us, and just wanted to put
so with alcohol, it's like when you drink it every day, you don't know what it's doing to your body, because you think, well, this is the way I feel, you know, I drink every night, but when you get off of it, you realize how good you feel. You you know, you're not irritable. Alcohol a lot of times, you know, has a rebound effect like any drug. So when you get off of a drug, you know, it might have made you happy, but then the rebound effect is you're going to get unhappy. You know, and so alcohol has that way of it, you know, you get really joyful on it, but it releases all this GABA in your brain, and then when you get off of it, it has a rebound, the opposite effect. So when you live every day drinking, you don't really kind of know what's going on with your body until you take a break. And I think with Stuart going 10 months, he's like, oh my gosh, I feel better. My moods are more stable.
Still love alcohol.
Yeah. Okay. So
let's get back to your journey. Yeah, let's get back to the beginning for you.
Okay. So the beginning
for me was when I was 8 years old. When's the beginning for you?
Well, you know, I grew up in a home where both my parents, I would consider them alcoholics. My dad was a functioning alcoholic, meaning, you know, he drank on the weekends. I remember him always having a beer in his hand, and I would sneak the beer, you know, all as kids when Dad wasn't looking, you know, we'd, you know, take a sip of the beer. And then I found out later they both hid brandy in their Coke. So they would hide that from us, and then we just thought they were drinking Coke, but all us kids would sneak the Coke, and we realized the Coke tastes a little different than just regular Coke. And so anyway, but when I was a teenager, I didn't get drunk. I think there might have been one time I kind of went drinking with some friends, but I was afraid of drugs and I was afraid of alcohol. And so
drugs are bad, alcohol is bad, tobacco is bad.
So when I got married, my life revolved just totally around family and church and God, and never had alcohol in the house. I remember, you know, looking back, this is funny, but I went on an anniversary with my ex-husband. It was probably like the 12th year. And we went to a restaurant and we bought a bottle of wine. And we brought home half the bottle. And I remember it sat on the refrigerator, and finally I tossed it. Or we might go on a vacation and have one pina colada the whole week. So alcohol. So I wasn't a drinker until probably my late 30s, early 40s. And it started gradual. It'd be just kind of like on the weekends. We started having some friends that we knew that, you know, we would go out to dinner with them, and then they would order cocktails, you know, and maybe we would experiment with the cocktail. And then wine became kind of a big thing in Washington State, all the wineries. So it was kind of fun to do wine tasting, or, you know, the breweries were starting to kind of happen, and we'd go drink a beer. And it was just really casual at first. It was just not every day, maybe on the weekends, until it became kind of in my mid-40s, late 40s. I was a every night wine drinker. You know, I love cooking with it, you know, opening up wine with dinner, cooking. And then when my kids became adults, young adults, they were drinkers, you know. I wouldn't say they were alcoholics, but it was fun to drink with your kids, you know. On Thanksgiving, we would have the wine and all that. So everything was, you know, fine. I didn't feel like I had a problem with it until probably my 50s, early 50s, and I think it was a combination of a stress reliever, I think I had some trauma I never dealt with, and marital issues. And the drinking, I believe, was one of the key reasons why my first marriage ended after 41 years of marriage, sadly to say. That the alcohol opened the door to a lot of not so good things in our marriage, and I had a lot of resentments. And then I think menopause, I had symptoms of menopause. And they say to become a full-blown alcoholic usually takes a decade, and that's kind of what happened to me. And so it was like in my early 50s, and I had a friend that lived right down the street, and we met because we lived right on the waterfront, and through a mutual friend, and she became my drinking buddy. And we would drink during the day, and we'd cook, and I'd come home, and my husband would be, you have to choose. Are you drinking tonight with me? Or are you drinking with her during the day? But you can't drink all day.
Nothing wrong with that.
And then I started having sleeping
problems. Day drinker.
Yeah, and so I'd have sleeping problems. And so I didn't know that alcohol really doesn't do really well on your sleep. It'll put you to sleep, but you don't get a really good sleep. So I think during, that season too, like, I would get a bottle of vodka and just kind of take, a couple shots to help me sleep and stuff. So I knew,
hate vodka.
Yeah, so I knew it was getting a grip on me. And so I started kind of, going to, through some marital issues, and me and my ex-husband moved to wine country. And I worked at 5 different wineries. And Lake Chelan, it's a big vacation. We used to vacation there when our kids were little, and there was no wineries back in the day, but it's this big, wine district now. And, I do wine club parties, and so it started to really get a grip on me. Oh my gosh, I can't tell you, I would empty out my bed underneath my bed and just grab the bottles. And I would go on benders, and my ex-husband always knew that when I was on a bender, the dishes wouldn't get done. I was a really clean housekeeper. Dishes wouldn't get done, and he would see me laying in bed, listening to music. And so anyway, it just started kind of getting a grip on me, and I was drinking. I'd binge drink on the weekends, and I'd drink wine all day. There was times I actually drank on the job, just to calm the shakes, because I'd get shaky when I'd go through withdrawals and I couldn't do the computer and stuff. And so anyway, so I'll just share, we have a lot to talk about with alcohol, so I just wanted to share this. So I would go on and off the wagon. And I'd go, I try not,
Are you okay? Yeah. Your throat's a bit...
I would try not, I'll get a drink of water, yeah.
You want a shot of vodka?
Nope, it's just water. And so I go on and off the wagon because I knew it was like destroying my health. I'm like, oh my gosh, my health is going to really take a toll. I actually went to the doctor one time. I was drunk. I had a doctor's appointment. And I walked and I told her, and she goes, oh, you're not the last person that came in drunk. And I tried to get sober. I'd go to AA meetings and stuff. So anyway, I was on a period where I went sober, and I went to see my kids they all lived in Western Washington, which is about 3.5 hours away, and they wanted me to cook St. Patty's dinner for them. And it was on a Thursday, and I made my traditional, it's a German dish. And
a German St. Patty's Day dish.
Oh, yeah, it was oh, no, I'm sorry. That's right. It wasn't a German dish. I did the corned beef. Yeah, that's right, the corned beef and cabbage.
Traditional Irish.
I'm sorry. That's what I did. I think.
Don't be sorry.
That's okay. Well, anyway, thanks for correcting me.
You're welcome.
Yeah, St. Patty's dish, and I did the whole thing. And the kids brought over the beer, and I thought, I'm going to just drink beer with them. So I'm drinking beer. Well, the beer ended up where the next day I met my bestie and in town, and we get the wine, and then I spent the night with her, and I'm drinking all weekend. So, and it was a Sunday morning to take off to go back to the other side. And I had all my alcohol bottles for my daughters because I was spend the weekend, with her, because I didn't want her to see them in the trash, hear them in the trash. So I put them in the car in this big tub of all my drinking all weekend. And so I get in the car, and I had a bottle of vodka in my seat with some wine. I go in and stop and see my mom's, and I'm still intoxicated from the night before. I probably drank during the night. And I'm talking to her and my brother. She said, Lisa, she said, I knew you were mouthy, but she said, you pulled it off. I did not know you were drinking. If you would, I would have never let you get in that car. And my brother didn't pick it up either. So this
is in Tacoma, which is in Western Washington. Yeah, you're about to drive over the
pass, mountains, which is a 3.5 hour drive. And so I get on the pass, and I ran out of vodka, and I'm like halfway home, and I thought I better get something in my stomach. So I stopped at McDonald's. Hadn't eaten McDonald's in 20 years, and I see a Safeway, and I go over there and I get a bottle of vodka, and I put it in my seat. So I'm taking off, and I get lost. Now, this is a road that I've been many times. Called my husband, and he said later, he goes, Lisa, I knew something was up. I should have got you off the road, but he didn't.
He should have.
And he should have. I found my way back on another highway. Now, this highway is going down the mountain pass. It's called the Blewett Pass. And it's just head on, one way, I was in a blackout. I do not remember going down an hour on this twisty, windy mountain pass. And anyway, I get to the end of the pass. I hit somebody. I rear-ended somebody. And the last thing I know is I'm waking up in the hospital. And
she didn't injure anybody. She dinged a car.
Yeah, I dinged a car. But my car got crashed. I think I hit a truck. I have no memory of it. In Washington State, when you get a DUI, they immediately throw you in jail for 48 hours. That is the law. But because my alcohol level was like at a 0.4, that's what the level Amy Winehouse died.
That's close to fatal.
Yeah.
Yes.
They put me in the hospital for my life. So my husband, I didn't come home, and he finally called the hospital or whatever and found me in the Wenatchee hospital. I'm sobered up. I go home, and I'm like, oh gosh, I wasn't thrown in jail. I must have not have got a DUI. How did that happen? Well, my husband kept it from me because he knew that I would panic. So months go by. Finally, he goes, Lisa, you have to go to jail. And so I got a lawyer.
Jailbird.
Now, this is kind of sad about my story because I was the good girl in the family. I had 3 older brothers. They were, they did drugs, alcohol, party, premarital sex, any kind of sin you could think about, my brothers did it, right? But me, I was a good Christian girl. Like, virgin when I got married, loved God, loved my family, had 5 kids, I was a minister, I was a pastor. And here I'm the one that's going to jail. And I was like, why me? But it was such a God thing because I could have killed myself or I could have killed somebody. I was so sick with alcoholism. And, and it was just So anyway, once you go to jail, the judge, he goes, Lisa, he goes, your record is so clean. He said, you didn't even spit on the dirt, but because your alcohol level was so high, you are going to be on probation for 5 years, and you're going to jail for 5 days. Well, I got a lawyer, and it was worth it, because I got in jail. He got me down to 5 days to 2 days in jail, and I want to tell you, you don't want to go to jail. I mean, I won't even go there, the story of what I experienced in jail, but anyway, but once you're on probation...
So you could, one poop bucket in the middle of the floor.
Yeah, pretty much. Pretty much. I mean, drug addicts, going on, fights breaking out, your food's being stolen. You're in this tank, it's called a tank, where so many bunk beds. And it was, but boy, 48 hours, the second on the clock, they come in and they get you. Stuff. But it was really humiliating, going to jail. And so then, once you're on probation, you have to go to rehab. And I was 6 months rehab, outpatient. I didn't have to go into a center. But I had to go drive to Wenatchee. Then we moved back to Gig Harbor, and I had to drive. And you have to go to so many AA meetings, but you cannot drink alcohol because the probation officer will do a random UA on you and stuff. But
What's a UA?
A UA is a urine analysis to just check and see if you have alcohol in your system, and you'll get in trouble. So anyway, but it was the best thing really that happened to me because of drinking for a decade. I didn't know what it was doing for me in my body, and being sober, it was like I just kind of woke up. Like it was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe how much this was affecting me. So it was a good wake-up call, and it just kind of shocked me into reality. Now, the sad thing is, I didn't stay sober. I mean, after 3 years, my probation or whatever, I did go back to drinking, but I tried to control it. And I, would just drink on the weekends. But my marriage was still so really bad that it was kind of an escape. I talked to vodka was like my best friend. And I was just, lonely. That's one thing about drinking. It just so isolate you. My husband and I had tons of friends, and we were in the ministry. We had a food kitchen. I was like a public speaker. And we get out of the ministry to take a break, and we ended up drinking, and we isolated ourselves from our grandkids and our kids. We were just each other's drinking buddies, and then a few friends that we had, And so anyway, let's see. So where we're at now with alcohol, and I'll just give you my honest opinion about what I believe. There's certain people that should never drink. And, they can't control it. I believe that they've hurt themselves, they've hurt people in their lives, and there's chronic alcoholics, and I believe, these people should never drink. I went to AA. People have a real Alcoholics Anonymous does have a really good success rate, but you have to really plug in the program. If you don't do the program, you probably go back to drinking. I did read a book. It's called Harm's Deduction Therapy. I could have Stuart link it. It's just really good. He went to AA, and he kept just really blowing it with his alcoholism, and AA wasn't doing it for him. So he wrote this book on how to control your drinking, and he just picks one day a week. And he said finally what worked for him is Sundays. He just drinks on Sundays, So the whole book is just about, how to kind of modify your drinking. But kind of what I believe is when you start getting healed of why you drink, the desire for alcohol goes. When you start loving yourself, you just kind of don't want to drink as much. So I think there's a lot of people that have a lot of trauma, and they haven't dealt with their trauma, and so they turn to self-medicate with alcohol or whatever drug they do. And so I think when you begin to get healed of inner trauma and you start kind of loving yourself again, I think you kind of don't. I think there's some people that can go back to drinking occasionally. So anyway, let's see.
So I'll jump in here.
Yeah, why don't you talk for a little bit?
So what we've been doing. So when we started our relationship, we were both on the wagon for 10 months. Lisa alluded to that. Well, we went to Scotland and we drank in Scotland. What we've been doing, so we've been on the road for almost a year. What we've been doing is we say to people we don't drink a lot, but when we do, we drink a lot. So what we'll do is we'll take 2 or 3 weeks off, and then we'll go on I wouldn't call it a binge, but we might have 4 days of drinking, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, say, and we'll drink 3 bottles of wine every day, right? So we can drink...
Not each, we
split it. We buy 3 bottles of wine, and then we have one each, and then we split the last one. But I'm pretty sure if we had 4 bottles, we'd drink 4. But there's a limit. We can safely drink a bottle and a half each without...
In a time period.
Yeah, in an
like
evening.
In an evening. Like from 4 o'clock in the afternoon to bed.
Start 4 till bedtime without getting into any kind of shit. But if we have more, sometimes the demons come out, and one or both of us will end up getting kind of ornery,
mouthy,
and it impacts you in ways that you don't want it to impact you. I love wine. I love beer.
Yeah.
But there's a downside. Never mind the health, the health stuff. Just the emotional health. There are risks involved. So what we do is we drink for 3 or 4 days, and then we go on the wagon for whatever length of time, 3 or 4 weeks, say. This time we finished. We went to Sonoma and Napa.
Well, we were a month sober.
Right, we'd been sober for 4 weeks, and then we were in Northern California. We went to Napa, we went to Sonoma, we went to San Francisco. We drank a lot of very, very, very expensive wine. And by the way, I used to own a winery. I've come to the conclusion that expensive wine's just BS. It's just for rich people to brag about how expensive their wine is. We were drinking $80 for a tasting, and then they wanted to charge us $175 for a bottle of wine. We didn't buy a $175 bottle of wine. We'll buy a $5 bottle of wine from grocery outlet that is just as good as the $175. Trust me on that. Unless you have this sophisticated palate. But anyway, so we finished drinking this time on December 26th. We actually had our last wine on Christmas Day.
And we're kind of like we know. Like, Stuart, I'm looking at, like, we went to St. Augustine last Christmas, and we drank 4 days in St. Augustine. It was like a vacation, and we look at each other, and I'm like, yeah, well, let's go, dry January or whatever. And Stuart goes, why don't we just do it tomorrow? And I go, sure. So the day after, like, Christmas last year too, we went sober for, I think, 5 weeks, right? Yeah, we went sober until we got tempted with it.
So one of the things for me is I have a weight problem. I've been struggling with weight loss, trying to lose weight for years and years and years. So when you're on, apart from the calorie content of the wine itself, it breaks down your resolve. You end up eating more. I'm talking about me. I eat more, I drink more, I pack on more, and so there's hidden negatives with alcohol, but just the visual stuff right away is enough to say, this is maybe not such a great thing.
Well, that's what I think, Stuart. We go periods of sobriety, and he feels so good. I mean, his blood pressure, your blood pressure's getting down. I remember I used to make doctor's appointments, and I figured out I could never do them on a Monday because my blood pressure was up. And this was when I only drank on the weekends. But if I made it late, like a doctor's appointment later on, on a Friday, my blood pressure was down. So having it out of your body, there's 2 reasons why we don't drink all the time. One is Stuart's weight, and I put on weight too. My body loves wine for some reason. The other thing is we're older now, and our bodies just can't handle it like when we were younger. And we want to live a healthy lifestyle. Well, we want to be able to hike this last, we're in the autumn of our years. We're in our 60s. We want to, do the things we want to do. And I noticed when we were drinking more in Florida, one was from boredom. But if we did a weekend drinking thing, we were lazy. We didn't want to go walk on the beach. We didn't want to do anything. We'd sit and watch movies, all weekend. So it kind of takes your motivation.
Man, I could guzzle a glass of wine right now, by the way.
Well, that's another thing I want to talk about because of the triggers and stuff. But yeah, so there's 2 reasons. One is our health.
Money. We haven't got the money anymore.
That's the last one. So we are on a fixed income now, being retired, and we live under this budget. Well, like, we had some of our friends from Scotland come for 3 weeks off and on, 2 weeks. They were gone a week. And anyway, our alcohol, oh my gosh, it'll be $200 on a weekend. Or especially if we go to like a brewery or we go out to dinner and we have wine. Well, you're not going to have 1 glass of wine. You're going to have 2. And we just can't drink just because we can't afford it. That's one of the reasons we can't afford it. We can't afford it. We get fat,
And you get hungover. And
then you get hungover, and then you're irritable. That's with me. So I just wanted to say about some tips about getting off with alcohol. When you get off,
you want to get off.
Well, I'm just saying, or taking breaks. If you're a pretty heavy drinker, I learned this from rehab, that alcohol is one of the most deadliest drugs you can get off of. It could kill you. So you got to taper down. You got to taper off. You can go into a facility. I had a friend, she didn't know she was an alcoholic. Actually, I met this gal in AA. She didn't know she was an alcoholic. And anyway, so she went, finally it dawned on her to go to, to a detox center. She quit drinking that morning. It took her 3 hours to get to Schicksal or whatever. Not Schicksal, but the Swedish hospital there in Seattle. She was full-blown seizures. Finally, they couldn't check her in right away, and the doctor said, you get your wife out there and put some alcohol in her, or she's going to. And I met a gal, at Starbucks, young gal, just lost her husband in his 30s. She didn't know he was a full-blown alcoholic. Must have hid the vodka or whatever he was drinking. He went sober to because he got a job interview, and it killed him. So you have to be careful if you're a heavy drinker and one of the ways you could taper down is by light beers.
How did it kill him?
It's just your body goes into withdrawals
detox
cardiac arrest. Yeah, probably cardiac arrest or whatever, my alcohol was so bad at one time, I believe I could have died from alcohol poisoning and somebody could have found me in my bed, and so, you could taper off by beer. I'll put a link before. You can, light beers, one day you take as many and the next day, you cut them down each day, there's that technique and stuff. But if you're an everyday drink, let's just talk about the health here for a minute. Because it's interesting. We've been doing wine tasting, like we went to Walla Walla. Well, do you know the wine industry is really taking a hit right now? There's a couple reasons. Some people are switching to pot, which my brother tried to get me, just smoke pot. That's what I did, Well, they're finding out that's just as bad on your brain and stuff. But the Surgeon General, it just came out that alcohol, not even one glass is good for you. And when you take alcohol in your body, you're taking it, it breaks down to ethanol, and it's one of the smallest molecules that your body could absorb. So it goes to every cell of your body. Don't just think it's hard on your liver. It's hard on your eyes. It shrinks your brain. It's hard on your heart. And, Stuart's got some friends that, well, I do too, but, you have heart issues. You're on all these heart meds. And could the root be their everyday drinking? Because your heart is an electric organ. It runs by electricity, like electric impulses. Well, what does it need? It needs magnesium, potassium. If you're drinking every day, all your minerals just get depleted. And so that's why you'll get leg cramps, after a heavy time of drinking. Low magnesium, what's that doing to your heart? It's stiffening your heart. So people get on all these heart meds when really it's the year.
That's one organ that you don't want to get stiff.
What?
Your heart.
Yes.
There are other ones that you do.
Okay. So anyway, just know that when you drink, you're literally poisoning every cell of your body. And occasionally, like I said, I believe God created it. I think it was for celebrations. I believe alcohol, they needed it for pain. If they were going to cut somebody's leg off back in the day, they didn't have pain medication. They probably had to down some whiskey. I think it was put on the earth for a reason. But, we really need to take a second look at, it does harm your health. And so anyway, so that's it, is we're kind of wanting to, and to never say never, like there are some people that should never drink, right? And God will help you with that, But then, I know we're going to drink again, right? Probably.
I don't think we say never, so we never say never.
Yeah.
But then we never say never. We will probably drink again, but right now we're enjoying not drinking.
Yeah.
It's 14 days.
Yeah. I think our one of our weaknesses is social.
Triggers. She was talking about triggers. One of the triggers is we'll sit at a campfire. Well, when you sit at the campfire, what do you want to do? You want to have a glass of wine, right? Or we go we're going to go into town. Let's go to a brewery. You're going to go to a brewery. Well, you're going to drink beer. you're not going to go to a brewery and drink I guess you could drink non-alcoholic beer, but you want to drink beer. But what else?
Like
stressful things.
Yeah,
like driving the rig or
crashing
the rig.
Yeah. So Stuart will be like off, on the wagon, and Stuart will have a stressful time at the rig, moving a location, and he'll go, I don't care what you say, Lisa, I'm drinking tonight,
So yeah, that's one of my
but
triggers.
You didn't a couple times ago. You're like, Lisa, this is weird, but I don't even feel like drinking.
No, if you have we have situations with the rig where you have for example, a very tight space to get into, or there's been a minor ding dong, which I've done a few times.
Yeah.
A couple of dings or whatever, and of course I get to the spot and then we get hooked up, and then I want to drink, right? I want to chill.
Right.
I
think another one is just hanging out with friends who drink.
Yeah.
We have a friend thing coming up here, and I told Stuart, I said, I wanted us to go a real long period of sobriety this time just to get some weight off. And honey, you're looking good, by the way.
Thank you, baby.
I
Not
know.
as good as you, though. You're looking
well,
better.
No, you're looking good, and
I've lost some weight, but I've got a long way to go.
Yeah, but
I'm still a fatso.
And so we're trying to troubleshoot. We did find Guinness. Non-alcoholic Guinness beer that wasn't too bad. We had it out at the campfire.
So, but even the thing is, though, for me, for the weight thing, even non-alcoholic beer or non-alcoholic wine, it's still calories. So anything that I do that's adding to my calorie intake right now, I just don't want to do it.
Right.
So, but yeah, that's one thing. You can do non-alcoholic stuff, but it's for me, it's not just about the alcohol; it's about the weight. And if I'm going to drink 2 or 3 pints of non-alcoholic IPA, that's still 600 calories, whichever way you count them, right? So, anyway.
Yeah, I know one thing we do too when we go sober is we'll allow ourselves to have a few more sweets. Now, you're not doing that this time.
I'm not doing the sweets because I'm trying to do this keto thing, low carb thing.
Right. But I found that they do that with AA, like they'll put a bowl of candy because your body's used to that, the addiction part of it, but also the sugar and stuff. And so sometimes, like when we went off for a month in the beginning, we're like, well, let's just go get an ice cream instead. This is before you kind of were working on your weight. Let's just get an ice cream cone, and then we can reward ourselves instead of getting a bottle of wine. So that kind of has helped us a little bit.
All right.
Let's see. So, I told about withdrawals.
She's got a few notes here. That's why we're looking down at the notes.
I think.
We covered everything. I had another story about when I had my cardiac arrest.
Oh, share it.
Should I share it?
Yeah.
So, when I had my cardiac arrest, which was almost 8 years ago now, when I woke up, they paddled me back to life with the paddles. What do you call it? The defibrillator.
Yeah.
And they said to me, is there anything we can do for you? I said, yeah, you can get me a whiskey. I was only joking, of course. But anyway, after surgery, I had to get taken to another hospital. I had a stent put in. It was an emergency thing. Got the stent in, and then at 3 o'clock in the morning, I think it was the next again day actually. I think it was 27 hours later. The nurse wakes me up at 3 o'clock in the morning and says to me, "Would you like a drink?" And I'm like, "No, I don't want a drink. I want something to eat. I'm starving. I think I hadn't eaten for a whole day and a half." So I think when I said I wanted whiskey, I think they must have put in the notes that I'm an alcoholic.
Yeah, and they probably didn't want him going through withdrawals.
She goes,
so
well,
maybe alcohol.
It won't be as good as the stuff you're used to. I was thinking, how does she know what I usually drink?
Yeah.
But anyway, I didn't want alcohol. I wanted food.
Right.
And I've never had that. I've never been in that situation where I don't believe I have, where I need to have a drink.
Right.
I just drink a lot.
Right.
Partly, maybe my Scottish heritage.
Yeah, but I do notice that when you get off, for me it takes me 4 days to get my brain chemicals back to normal. And so what I do is like the first day I just really try to detoxify, eat healthy, and get like a good walk in or run in. But just know you're going to be irritable. And if you're a heavy drinker with really hard liquor, you're going to get the shakes. And that's why people are stuck in this loop of drinking, because they'll get the withdrawals. And if you bite the hair, they call it, is right. if you take a drink, then your withdrawals will go away. So then you'll go again, then you'll get off. Then you just got to press through those withdrawals knowing they will pass. And it'll be about, to me, it's 4 days. Well, now with wine, it's not. If I just drink wine, it's like maybe a day. But it takes a while, a few days for your brain chemicals where you start sleeping again. But I like where our moods are more stable. Mm-hmm. That's one thing I notice. We don't get in as much we don't get as irritable with each other and stuff, I think.
Right. All right, so we'll wrap it. This is our story. If you have any questions, ping us and we'll answer those questions. We just thought it might be helpful for some folks.
Yeah, and I just wanted to say, if anybody of my friends is watching this, that know my story, my alcohol story, if I've hurt any of you, or I know I hurt my children, I've hurt my ex-husband, I hurt myself, please forgive me. And again, it's been a journey, and that's the thing, is we're all on a journey, we can't judge. I had a friend, this is kind of a cute story, I had a friend who knew about my DUI, and she calls me up out of the blue. I hadn't heard from her for a while, and she goes, Lisa, I got to confess to you, I think I'm an alcoholic. And I said, well, how much do you drink? And she goes, oh, I drink 1 bottle of wine a night. And I go, nah, you're not an alcoholic. Because I'm looking at 1 bottle a night, is not an alcoholic, compared to what I was drinking. But you're right, to her. But then if you, like a couple years later, I go, how's your drinking? She goes, well, I'm not only at a bottle, I'm at a couple shots of, whatever she drank, vodka or whatever, But then I have another friend who drinks a bottle a night, and, she seems to be fine. She works, and she is fine, I mean, it's between her and God, and so I don't judge.
The medical profession have various guidelines as to what is and what isn't an alcoholic. I think actually it's up to the individual to make a determination on whether they think they're an alcoholic or not. I went to AA with Lisa, and I stood up and I said, I'm Stuart, and I think I'm an alcoholic. Oh, I might be an alcoholic. And after one of the guys, we were all chit-chatting, the guy came up to me and said, were you joking? I said, nah, not really, because I never really considered myself to be an alcoholic, so I was still kind of on the fence. Yeah. But it may be just denial. Yeah. I think if you drink every day, you may be an alcoholic. But again, that's the medical profession makes these rules up, right? You yourself know if you're an alcoholic. Yeah, right. And whatever that means.
And another thing too, like trying to find, I hate to say like the sweet spot or whatever, but with me, if I stay under 2 glasses, 3 glasses, whatever, but if I cross the line, especially with hard liquor, I just can't have it in the house. Because if I will, and I won't know when to stop.
Which
and
I
so
don't do.
No. But with me, I can't have like Stuart bring. And sometimes maybe we should like at Christmas. Let's have a
bottle of bourbon, or
let's have a bourbon, tequila, or, and then I end up dumping it because we'll sit around and I'll have 1 shot and the next shot. But Stuart, when we were first together and stuff, and I had a lot of grief over the marriage, and I think a lot of it, grieving would come out, like Stuart would find me just wailing, just grieving. And then, we would get sometimes in some heated arguments and stuff, and the next morning Stuart was so sweet, he's like, Lisa, no postmortems. How do you say it?
No postmortems. Whatever happened last night, it's
and
gone.
And you got that from who? Somebody in the family?
My ex-mother-in-law.
Your ex-mother-in-law.
Who was very often drunk. She used to say, no postmortems.
Yeah.
You're not going to, let's not talk about what happened last night. So that's how we handle it.
Yeah, because part of when you overdrink, it hijacks your frontal cortex. And there was a doctor who was a drug addict, and he became an alcoholic, and he had to prove that alcoholism was a disease, because some people don't believe, especially in the Christian community, it's a sin, or whatever.
It's not a disease, it's a sin.
And yeah, but it is. It actually, it hijacks. It goes in your it's called the reptile brain, and it'll hijack your prefrontal cortex, which is your decision making. You're a right moral person. I make right decisions. And you cross that line, and so some people that get angry when they drink, it's not really who they are. It'll hijack, and again, it could be wounds coming out. They get angry when they drink. That's why everybody in jail or a prison, it's usually alcohol or drug related. You know, I mean, it's sad to say, but it is. It messes with your brain, you know.
But on that note, I'm now getting hungry.
Yeah, anyway, so thank you for our topic.
7:40.
And, share this if you know somebody that's struggling, and anybody that we've had people call us about their drinking, too, and we've been able to kind of encourage them. Any way we can encourage you, or,
give advice. Not that, again, we're not professionals.
Yeah,
all we can do is provide some insight.
Yeah, but we definitely, I feel your pain, and if you're really struggling with it, I know how it could get a grip on you, where I remember waking up and journaling. I go, God, I'm here again. I'm here again. I'm here. When am I going to ever get out of this cycle? And luckily, the DUI kind of got me out of it. Thank God for it. But it was sad I had to go through all that, you know. So anyway,
it can be a destroyer of lives.
It can. Like any addiction, gambling, any addiction can destroy lives. So. Yeah, anyway. Okay, well, thanks for listening, and God bless you, and I hope this ministered to you. Okay, bye-bye.